All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for
Revolutionary Girl Utena, episode 23. Holy shit.
Last episode gave us...
Yeah, a bit. A bit to chew on?
A bit of a cracking of the egg, if you will, as to
Breaking
what's...
of the world's shell.
Right, as to what's truly going on in this anime.
We had a good old-fashioned school bonfire. But not for a festival.
Right.
And there were some people inside.
Bonfire of dreams.
Yeah, a lot of dreams were consumed in that bonfire. Okay. That and apparently immortality or non-aging or whatever is somehow is on the table, whatever that means.
Well, right. We're going to get some answers or bigger questions pretty soon. So yeah, y'all, without further ado, let's get into this. Oh.
Where's the rose? Really now?
Huh?
You haven't... Oh, okay, and she's not in the plant area.
The genie is out of the bottle.
Yeah.
The genie's out of the lamp. Huh. Hi.
Oh.
Oh, hi. Yeah.
Also, what's that pose of Utena's?
Yeah. It's the Kriparian pose. If you know, you know.
I think I do actually know that one, yeah.
Oh.
Okay, so she did actually
Register that.
register that. You can never tell with Utena. Yeah. Well, there have been like about a dozen people that have tried to kill Anthi, but, you know... No, I can't think of anything.
Why is she taking so long?
Or is she actually, like, realizing something's wrong?
Whoa.
Ironic timing after the previous episode.
Yeah.
Oh. And they'll use the final one on her. Holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you can mind control them. Yeah, mind control Utena. There'd be no one to defend Anthi. Oh. Okay, she's starting to figure it out. Yeah. Now, why does he have that so publicly displayed? Like...
He doesn't care.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't you guys already have eternity?
No. Dang.
Return?
Oh my god. My head is hurting right now.
この人たちは皆ミカゲゼミの仲間だった人たちですよ。彼女たちは皆忘れられない思い出を持っていました。 彼女らはそれを守るための戦いに赴いたのです。言うなれば、思い出によって人生を変えようとした人々。
思い出。
Were all the duelists women? That they got with the rose?
Oh shit. Implanted memories.
Oh shit. Oh my god.
君ならば、きっと僕みたいに思い出を永遠のものにできる。世界はそれを必要としています。
Wow.
君の進む道はよい。
Yeah, way to go.
Utena, we know.
自分の大切な思い出に触れるなって叫んでるみたいだぜ。
なんだと？分かったようなこと言うな。僕の思い出は。
そうか。君を今まで支えてきたのはその思い出か。美しい思い出を持つ者だけに願うことを許されるんだ。あの頃が永遠に続いたならば、今もあの頃でいられたならばと、思い出を永遠のものにしたいと願ってやまない。そんな人の目と同じだ。
僕と決闘しろ。今日の夕方、決闘広場に来い。
Yeah.
Okay.
お前を叩きのめして。
First time she's ever challenged somebody.
Holy shit. And now he's moving up the elevator.
She might have challenged Toga earlier. I can't remember.
なぜ黙ってるの？
Yeah, why does that seem to have been shaking him up?
見ろよ。
A genuine tear.
涙だ。
涙。
痛みに思わず涙が出たらしい。
Didn't know I could still do that.
僕のバラの刻印を見つけなかったら、僕はあの場で殺されていたんじゃないか。
なんだか楽しそうだね。
まったく、彼女はいつも僕を傷つけ、驚かせる人だよ。
So now he'll use the rose on himself?
キコは帰ってきた。僕との決着をつけるためにね。
Yep.
世界の果てに咲き誇るバラ。
Okay, yeah, that was entirely different. Ridiculously different.
One of these days, they're both gonna die.
Yeah. Never. Never. We know.
Yep. Alright, confirmed. It's not Wakaba. Not all the time, at least.
It's never been. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. Whoa. What?
Okay,
Oh,
so
that's his duplicated thing.
All right.
Okay.
But we didn't get to see where he got his sword from. I mean, we can probably assume it was Mamiya.
Right. Darkness burning, puppets giving birth. Okay.
行くよ。よく受けた。だが。
What a single being.
本調子じゃないな。君に締め上げられた肩が痛い。君には負ける気がしないよ。
Whoa.
So he's left-handed, and now he's fighting with his right.
それは違う。僕の黒バラを受けた者たちは皆自分の意志で僕の元へ来た。そして自分の意志でこの場所に立ったんだ。
That's not.
ここに立つ者は皆僕
That's not exactly true.
永遠に惹かれてやってくるんだ。
お前が勝手にやったことを他人のせいにするな。
君を最初に見た時から僕には分かっていたよ。君も昔大切な人に出会ったんだ。それでその人に自分の人生を変えられてしまったんだ。いや、そのイリュージョンによってここに
Right. Yeah, exactly.
決闘場に入れたのさ。違うか。結局は君も僕と同じなんだ。
Shit.
僕にここで負ける。敗北するんだ。
Still calling her Tokiko.
わからないことをお前なんかに負けるか。
胸のバラを散らさねば分からんらしい。
Oh, cool.
Nice.
やはり
Yeah.
しまった。ウテナ様。ウテナ様。姫宮。姫宮。ウテナ様。
What?
Is Auntie gonna take the hit or something? Or
彼女にバラを散らされるんだ。
Whoa.
どこだマミヤマミヤマミヤ
Whoa.
whose memories are these?
Yeah.
Oh shit.
あなたは彼女に勝てない。
Wait, so the entire time
思い出の中の
was Mamiya just a memory?
あなたは永遠に勝てないの。
My sister who dwells in your memories. Wait, hang on a sec.
永遠はもう目の前なんだお前を倒し世界を変える力をこの手になぜ僕を理解しない僕は全てを受け入れている君の弟の罪さえも
Gotcha.
Oh
Okay.
shit.
よく見て。あの時、あの場所には本当は誰がいないか。あの
Wow.
だったのは本当は誰か。
You did it.
マミヤ久しぶりだね君を見たのはもう何十年ぶりだ
Oh, then fucking Akio getting a call.
Uh-huh.
君がトキコへの未練からそばに置いていたマミヤという少年はずっと昔に死んでいる。
Holy shit.
君が自分の時間を止めてまで大切にしていた思い出のイリュージョンを
Oh my god.
君が可能性を秘めたまま大人になりきれずにいた時間は役に立ったよ。
Wow.
And you danced perfectly like a
これから
puppet
先
for
君
me.
の進む道は用意してない。君も卒業し
At this point, I wouldn't be surprised if we found out that he never looked like that. That he was actually like an old man or something.
ここはずいぶん昔に大きな火事があったんですよ。死傷者はなかったらしいんですが、何しろ生徒会発足以前のことなので資料が
No one was hurt?
どうした彼に同情しているのかだがすでに彼はこの学園にはいない。いや、最初からいなかったんだ。君と同じ
Just a memory?
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy shit.
Yeah. I knew it. Fucking knew it.
Holy shit.
Oh my
Wait
god.
a second. Wait a second. Wait a second.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Fuck. I felt like it was slowly like leaving my grasp of my like, you know, being able to track with everything, but I was like grabbing after it and like holding on and then just slips through my fingers.
Yeah. The last 2 minutes of this episode
Yeah. I
hurt my everything. But I fucking called it. I knew that Mamiya had to be like
Some
connected
kind of
to Anthe,
Yeah.
but in not just like they're like connected to each other, but they are some iteration of the same person.
right.
There's
Yeah.
some way in which they are linked by identity.
But
Like
the fact that, and let's see the look. Yep.
Yeah.
But shut them forever, just and love into your heart. But given that Mamiya was a memory, right?
Right, he kind of substituted himself where necessary,
Right.
in order to
And that's where
cover up for what he had
desiring to
done.
kill Anthe doesn't become a plot conflict.
Right,
Because, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
fucking
That's-
called it. Mamiya is Anthe, and
Or,
obviously Mamiya is a person that existed and stuff, but that's
Right.
the late brother of
so, of the teacher.
the teacher.
Right. So
yeah.
do you want to get at this thematically first, concretely, or well, could we even get at it concretely first?
Yeah. I don't think we can get at it concretely. There's a couple
okay.
things here that we have to kind of
thematically
well,
then?
no, but there's a couple things that we have to just kind of knock off, and then we can spend time on the deep stuff.
Okay.
First thing is that we had a duel between a character
Yes.
that we never thought would actually be a duelist
But
in the setup
it
here.
makes sense. I like it as him being the final one.
Yes, it totally makes sense of him being the final one, but that means then that the next sequence of the story is going to be completely different. We effectively had another finale.
Yep. Act 2 is done.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so let's just kind of accept that happened. Two, the idea that this was something that was set up
by Akio.
Through Anthe.
Yeah.
Because the rose was at the very least given to Soji, but it was specifically given
by
through the memory visage of Mamiya, which, as we know, with the way in which things have been connected through the final scene, that's effectively Anthe. So that's that.
Although I have some theories with regards.
We'll get into that. But
stuff and everything.
We'll get into that. But the point is that he's done.
Oh yeah,
he's done. And then from that, we then had everyone's memories just completely changed.
The world was revolutionized.
And it was by Akio.
Yeah.
Like, Akio has the power currently to revolutionize the world, and yet he has not necessarily attained what is necessary to enact his goals and whatever they are, because of the way in which the dueling arena connects to the castle, the power of Dios, and all that, and what they were talking about together, Anthe and him, in the spot with the sleeping prince,
right? So,
which is power of Dios and stuff like that.
I would say that covers all of the things that we can say that we know from this episode.
Right?
Not a lot. Now, so as far as the things that we don't necessarily know, right?
Yeah.
But things that could be. So. It seems to be one, we can't, because of what happened in this episode, there's a whole lot of stuff that we can't actually trust with regards to what the show's presented to us. But Soji potentially was never actually at this school, because that's something that Akio said. There's the whole idea of the memories and things, and I love the idea of holding on to a memory so strongly that it alters your perceptions of other people.
Yeah, and it could give you strength.
It gives you strength. Yeah, all of that stuff.
We are basically just memories.
Right. It's a great way
Given form.
It's a great way to anchor this antagonistic figure to the main character of Utena.
And also the world building in general.
And the world building
around something we all understand. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that, I love it. The idea of how much was memory versus what wasn't, that I think is a wonderful question to get into. And the idea that, if you're so focused on the past that you can't look to the future, that's going to be a bit of a problem. And Akio's probably big thing is that he's constantly looking to the, I'd say.
No, I think his main thing is that he's using illusion to guide things towards a specific future.
Sure.
But in that regard, he's actually so probably selfishly focused on the present and himself.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
That he's basically created this bubble world where he's determining the rules and the reality of everything based on the ways in which he can manipulate people's impassioned, important, identity-driven memories for everyone in the school.
Okay, so this was
graduates the people that are done being useful.
So this was the reason why I wanted to bring up the idea of what exactly was Soji's existence at the school. Because Akio, I'm guessing, is the one thing that we can consider to be, for the most part, accurate from the previous episode that we were shown. Akio did exist. He manipulated Soji, stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
He helped make this happen.
Yeah.
He's still here now. And assuming that the previous him wasn't illusionified to the audience, and the Akio that you see now isn't as well.
Soji.
No, right. But I think it's something where then Akio potentially was the only person that actually touched eternity and attained that kind of immortality or whatever, except for maybe Anthe.
Again, I still don't think they actually have it. Based on the way that they talked to each other, it was either 12 or 13. I don't think they have it. I think they're enacting ritualistic stuff together to get at it.
So then Akio is actually like really old, but because he can do illusion-y fuckery stuff, he looks young.
I don't think it's important to discuss what people's appearance is in the age sense. In terms of the identity sense, I think it does matter,
Sure,
though.
right. Because the fact that the Mamiya that Soji saw,
Right.
yes, visually similar to Anthi in a lot of ways, and so it could have totally been Anthi physically there. But
Right.
the other thing that is important to bring up is that Mamiya looked princified based on the whole power of Dios manifestation or whatever that's slumbering in the place.
Right.
Right. And so that's really what Mamiya looked like. That's also kind of what Akio looks like.
Yes.
So it could be something where it's less about the physical appearance of the person, but about the idea that that is something that was attributed to them. In the case of Mamiya, because it's a memory, right, that's looked upon so fondly, yes, of course it takes upon some of that guise, even though that was nothing like what Mamiya actually looked like.
Right.
Right? Like
Mamiya
entirely
was
different
entirely
race
different.
even,
Yeah.
right? So that's its own whole thing,
Yeah.
right? And yet Soji was like having conversations with Mamiya, which then would just be conversations with himself, or
Yeah.
maybe conversations with Anthi.
Yeah, that's where in a lot of ways I feel like it's important to bring up that Anthi has an exceptional amount of time in the story that she could be doing stuff that we're just not focusing on her. And then she's just always suddenly there in the dueling arena and, brought in for every single duel.
Right,
There's
right.
no process that she goes through. She's just there waiting for Utena.
Yeah, she doesn't miss an appointment for when it comes to being the bros bride.
Right, exactly. There's a set of laws for this world that I have to assume Akio has dictated. This is tied to the element in which she is both the bird in a cage, but then she is also very much, she does have a will. She is actively doing things, and she is working towards her own goal. But it's the question as to how much of this is to subvert Akio eventually,
Exactly.
or is this a way in which she's kind of being difficult
Right.
openly to Akio and just making it slower for whatever he wants.
Sure.
And then versus all the way to she's totally aligned with him through either memory manipulation or by actual just what she believes and wants.
Right.
Yeah.
Something that I forgot about that I wanted to bring up with regards to the Soji situation is that we also had that deal with his secretary, which I thought was interesting because the secretary, as far as I can remember, she wasn't introduced as like a character.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
So this is just random person that basically would be close to him, and then
Just to show how he treats people.
but also how he appears to people.
Sure.
And I would say there's a part, maybe this isn't actually like true, especially given what Akio said about he was never at the school, but the secretary thing was recent, but then it didn't have to be recent necessarily. But she basically left and all that stuff, but she was someone that was involved in his life. So we can assume that the secretary person probably did actually exist. Did Soji even appear the way that he did? Was he just...
But what does that have to do with anything? Like
The reason... So how much does it go into... or rather, at what point does it go from being someone who's like an old man that can't... someone who's growing older but can't move on, to ghost that basically inhabits the past because of the his spirit was holding on to the memories or something, right? Because Akio said the whole thing of he was never actually at the school.
when?
At the end.
Okay.
That was
So-
one of the things that threw me for the biggest loop.
Yeah, your companion was all...
Actually died a long time ago.
Yeah, stopped time for you. I made use of that.
Right.
The time you spent not growing up as you kept possibilities hidden in your heart proved useful to me. However, that's all over now. The path you must take
He's not prepared for you.
prepared for you. Now graduate from this place. Where is this? Do you feel sympathy
Okay,
for
yeah.
him?
But he isn't here at the school anymore.
Yeah.
He never really was in the first... Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So that's metaphorically because... Yeah, okay. Yep.
Yeah. He
All right.
He very clearly was. He literally said graduate from this school.
Right. Yeah, okay. Okay, cool.
I think it's basically just the idea that, like,
Yeah,
the
he
way
was so
in
stuck
which,
in the past.
Well, no, it's the way in which he's comparing Soji to Anthi.
Oh,
Just like you. And then shows...
She turns and smiles. Yeah.
Yeah. It's something where Anthi is...
And that's when it's revealed to be Anthi, not Mamiya.
Yeah, exactly, because Mamiya is dead. It's the... Anthi is presenting herself and not who she really is. And that's why, again... appearances of how old they look, I think, are irrelevant. It's the idea that these people have very defined roles of identity in the story. And because a lot of the themes of the simpler times of the story were focused around the idea of identity and expression surrounding that identity, it's important to know who everybody is, because most of the antagonists thus far have all been duplicitous. They all have an alternate side of themselves that they're hiding.
Yeah,
they are all holding something very dark or very painful in the shadows. And that goes all the way to Toga.
Yeah, it was like
goes all the way to
defining
Nanami. Yeah, and then now it's extremely strong for Akio and potentially by extension Anthi.
Right, she's super duplicitous whether she's an antagonist.
Oh yeah, exactly. Anthi, you noticed it like way faster than I did too. The idea that like the ED was hinting at it, but even some of the times when we were in the first like 10 episodes and stuff, she had some
her smile
betrayed something,
stuck too well.
Yeah. And so now it's just when is her mask going to drop? What has she been doing here all this time? And what is her true desires and wants? This episode basically says, we'll focus on that in the next episode or two. You know?
But so in this episode where we have all of this stuff that you can't know if what you're looking at is real and all this stuff, and all kinds of crazy implications, and one of the scenes that I almost think is potentially the most powerful is when Utena wakes up or something. And Anthi's there.
Anthi's holding her hand, yeah.
Anthi's holding her hand.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when Utena was talking, there was this part of me that's wondering, is Anthi actually asleep? Right? Like is she actually asleep? Because there was that part of me that was thinking she wasn't, but now that I think about it, I think she actually was asleep.
Oh, yeah,
which means
she was,
that's probably Anthi at her most vulnerable that we've seen, right? Where it's any masks that are there would be dropped unless she's so good that she's going to be like, I'm going to sit next to Utena and hold her hand so that even while I sleep, if she wakes up or whatever, the mask won't be dropped or whatever, right? Never off the clock. But...
Well, remember, there's also this part here where they send us into Utena kind of thinking about, like, friends with problems. Let's see. Yeah. It's like she's searching through her memories.
Sure.
She ends up being sent back to her childhood memories, and then she's...
And specifically the bit with because this was shown in
Toga's
whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And she's like, don't open it. This coffin is for me. Living on it just makes me sick. Why does everyone go on living if they all have to die someday?
Right.
Why didn't I realize it before today? There's no such thing as something eternal. Now, what I really liked about this is that I think it continues a little bit of my theory about what Soji's role was in the story. And they go on living, they all die someday. Why didn't I realize it before today? No such thing as something eternal. It's essentially the plight of Soji's. Like the idea that the illusion is something that had been cast over him.
Right, it was gone and he wasn't able to accept that, realize that, etc. And so he lost the time that he could have had with Mamiya.
Right, and I think that's the way in which we're seeing how Soji and Utena are connected. And that was something that I also thought kind of made sense just within the way that they presented Soji and Mamiya at the same time.
Oh yeah,
they literally were gender bent.
Right, you
inversions of Utena.
Yes,
and
the parallel was very strong even before whatever that meant with Akio talking to Mamiya, and then suddenly it's Anthi.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think that there's a very clear possibility that there was something that happened there along Soji's desire to attain eternity that Utena's tapping into, but she had a very clear, like, protagonist brain shorted out because my memories have been altered so much over the course of my life.
It's you open a bad file on your computer and suddenly
your
blue
whole
screen
thing is corrupted.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and then we literally skip ahead
to her waking up.
Well, right, but it's after she has her own flashback kind of moment. Oh, what do you know? She's in a different location. She's asleep. Mm-hmm. It's like she had a really rough day trying to think about her past.
Yeah.
Made some tea, right? Mm-hmm. But then wakes up and the person with the problems is right next to her, almost in some ways holding on to her of like hey, you're a little bit of my strength as I'm dealing with my problems.
Yep, exactly.
Even though there's very clearly some intense emotions that come from Anthi towards Utena.
Yes, absolutely.
Just in general.
It's fascinating, and that's a nice little confirmation.
Yes.
That because while Utena asks the question of, you can't quit being the Rose Bride, can you? Right?
So she's
Anthi doesn't respond
because she's asleep.
Because she's actually asleep, probably, right? But that's a nice little bit of acknowledgement from Utena that that is kind of a problem for you, right?
I do have a friend with a problem.
Yeah, I do have a friend with a problem, even though earlier on in the show it was very much just no, I'm the Rose Bride, so this is what I do. But it's Utena finally did the 5-year-old thing of going one step past that. But do you have to be the Rose Bride as a
Right. But I really liked the way in which she has this then moment of then going to the place that should be burned down,
right?
Looking for Soji probably to answer the question of, I do know, friend with problems and stuff.
Yep.
But then we show Anthi asleep
in bed. I like to think that Utena might have tucked her in, but
yes, that also yes, definitely. But I also just like the idea that we're kind of having this again reminder of, here's where Anthi is in this situation when things are involving Utena kind of wanting to go and solve something and figure something out. It's just, I like that. It all feels like it's all connected as part of the same scene. But then he just completely abandons her, the secretary. So this lead up here to Soji then kind of dealing with his own memories versus then facing Utena in the hallway with all the Duelist portraits.
Yeah, that's
What do you make of this? Because
the vibe that I got in the episode is that it's no, you weren't covering for Mamiya burning down the building because Mamiya didn't do that. It was you the whole time.
Yeah, you were avoiding your own painful memory.
Which is the vibe that I got when I first watched that previous episode anyways.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Like it did seem kind of weird that they were saying that no, it was actually Mamiya and he just covered for him because they didn't really spend much time on it. And the obvious thing would have, if
the only other thing would have been that maybe Akio manipulated Mamiya to do it.
But if Soji got the idea, let's burn down the building from something he saw, why would he convince Mamiya to do it and then Mamiya does it? Wouldn't it still be him?
Right.
But maybe it's his memories are being fucked with either by someone else or by himself because he doesn't want to admit to the fact that he actually did that maybe. Right? And so then, okay, this is, I don't know. And so this is then, it's part of him accepting his own memories and coming to realize the truth. And that's why he gets so antagonistic with Utena verbally, right? Which then, gets under her skin because they are incredibly similar. Yeah. Also, the fact that he had a picture of Utena as a kid at her parents' funeral, something that it made me think. Now, granted, it was only 100 boys that were killed in the fire, but it did make me wonder: could it have been something where it was 10 years ago or whatever? Although I think the timeline would have been more than 10 years ago, given the teacher. But that maybe it was her parents that died somehow, and that's like how, and then it's connected that way. But the more I thought about it, I was like, I don't think that holds water. But the picture's there.
Yeah, and all of these pictures members of the Mikage seminar are all women, specifically.
Correct. And no, there was the young boy that was obsessed with Nanami.
Right.
But
he did say, though, that these are all members of the Mikage seminar. The girls all had memories they couldn't forget.
Right, so there was something specified for the women as opposed to the guys.
Yeah. Which just feels a little bit
like
suspect.
Right, is that just his own personal warped perspective, or is that something that's actually happening mechanically? Well,
I think there's a very clear reason as to why there are all boys in the Duelist 100 group.
Yes, that absolutely.
Yeah.
Now it could be because it's the well, no, because there are plenty of Utena's not the only female duelist, right? Because there's the whole prince archetype, but no, that's not exactly what it is. So
no, I think it's tied to the idea that on some level Utena is special because she was brought into this story with intention. She is not someone who has her own will in its entirety.
Right.
She was a vessel that is being used and manipulated by forces that are larger and stronger and more
Let's
powerful.
Be real, probably Akio. Given that he's all kinds of old.
Yeah, when it comes all the way back around to the original thing there. But I think that there are others that were thinking they were the ones manipulating.
Sure. I'm talking about the prince that gave her the ring. Right.
I get what you're saying.
Because Akio is the one that seems to have the ability to affect what people see.
Mm-hmm.
He does that with some kind of glamour, essentially, right?
Yeah.
So that she doesn't really remember,
I mean, even if he didn't have it at that time, the idea that later he could just go back and be like, and slightly forget the details.
Yeah, exactly.
Just remember that,
the idea of a prince.
Yeah, for whatever reason, you find me easy to confide in. Maybe because there's a slight bit of memory. You still remember that I kind of remind you of your prince a little bit.
Well, and also, if you think about the situation that Anthi's in, if Akio has the ability to manipulate memories, forget gaslighting. That's a whole other kind of fucked. A whole other reason why she would then need to make sure that he very much believes that she is, on his side. Because just because he can manipulate memories doesn't mean he can read the memories, So he can't necessarily read her mind. But
right. So this is the part where they're kind of talking in the hallway there, and it kind of gives basically the whole thing away to Utena here, and I really like this here because it's probably the most nonchalant kind of part. It feels kind of like, oh, and by the way, I'm the, I don't want to spoil that other thing, but, it feels like that kind of a thing there where they all fought to preserve these memories, right? In short, they are people. It's one of those things where the anime is like, okay, succinctly, this is what happened.
Sum it up in case you didn't
They tried to change their lives according to their memories. Now, you can substitute memories a little bit with basically Akio involved potentially. Not necessarily for all of them, but for any one of them theoretically.
And that statement on its own, not knowing about the Akio thing, that's fairly standard, right?
Yes.
Our experiences and stuff absolutely shape who we are, and if it's a particularly key memory, then yes, we will hold on to that and make it our strength or weakness or whatever.
Right. But what do we find here? Is that Utena has very clearly one that has shaped a lot of who she is and given her strength, and he kind of says
it's literally
hey, that's
the
good.
Beginning of the story.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's something that we know by the way that the themes have been explored in the show as a whole. It's going to be subverted in a very powerful way to break down a lot of the unhealthy aspects in the ways that people idolize fairy tale tropes and things about romance and all this stuff.
And it's already been happening.
It's already been happening, but it's going to keep going until it's more simply, kind of shown to be subverted.
Oh, gotcha. I was going to go the other direction, that it's been simply subverted, and now we're going to go into all the crazy, wacky specifics of the things that, this show's going to do.
I agree. I was just meaning that it's going to be very flat out said, and there's not going to be any question about it. Because right now we're basing it off of...
Well, but that probably goes back to our debate with the toga fight. But
okay, well, whatever. The thing with this here is that I really like the way in which he does draw more of a connection between the two of them.
And I gotta say,
like me, you should be able to make your memories eternal.
Yep.
Why?
Yeah, why would you necessarily
Why
want
would you
that?
say that?
Like, because on the one hand, unless you like forget the memories, of course, yeah. But like your memories are always with you. That's the point.
Right.
But your memories are not like they're real because they happened, but they're not like physically here. It's not, it's the past that informs the present to build the future, right? It's
Right.
not the past that is the present.
Right.
That's not how it works.
Right. So what I think he's getting at is basically that by her being a strong duelist and by being set up in this way to win the duels, win the Rose Bride, have everything set up in this way,
Yeah. Go further than he could and all that.
she's going to go further than he could, but I think that ties as well into the idea that he almost is excited about this. The idea that he like wants her to go beyond this, and yet there's this part where he needs her to be beaten.
Well, and this is where I was thinking that he was actually trying to coax her into a situation where he could use the rose to then take control over her and then have her kill Anthe or something, right?
And she just punches him in the face.
But instead she punches him in the face and it's like, oh fuck, okay, that didn't work. Time for plan B. I believe in myself a lot. I will be the one to defeat her. And because she's so strong, if I beat her, that means I'm super strong and all that stuff, and I'm competent and confident.
I mean, you win the duel, you win the Rose Bride.
Right,
so
right.
there
And
you go.
then he gets his objective. And that would be really fucked in an ironic way if he had one. And let's say Anthe physically was there and he was just imprinting on Anthe Mamiya. He kills Anthe and he suddenly wakes up from the dream. Right? But
Yeah. Only those who hold beautiful memories are allowed to wish. To wish for that time to go on and on, to wish to never change from what you were. I too understand. You're just like me.
this is one of the more satisfying examples of the antagonist saying, "You're just like me, hero."
me. Well,
Like, because it's done so often, but oftentimes I don't buy it. This one, it's like, no, yeah, of course.
Right. I still think that it's something, especially now that we've had the Mamiya Anthe confirmation there. I absolutely think that he's some kind of like
Akio?
Soji is literally like some kind of iteration of Utena or something like that. He's some kind of the first attempt maybe that Akio did to try and set up the perfect duelist that can then bring all this so that he can do the ritual to do whatever is necessary to
exactly. Even if there
know?
isn't any actual connection between the two of them, if there is a connection in Akio's mind where it's this was experiment number 4 or something, and now she's experiment number 5.
Yeah.
I would 100% buy that.
Yeah.
And I would say that's almost a given at this point. The question is to what degree does that affect the story now?
I think Soji kind of knows. Like, I think his dialogue points to him kind of knowing in some way.
Well,
and it's the idea that he's like, I can say with certainty these things about you, not just because I can see your character, but he even literally says you can see it in our eyes. He goes from second person into first person. Like he literally changes tense here to be like, look, we are
the same,
we are,
so,
we.
One of the other things that I'm really curious about, Utena follows its formula, right? Because of, conventions at the time and all that stuff, and they worked it into the narrative really well. Originally, once the episode concluded, I was like, okay, so I guess he's just gone. He's dead. He's wiped from existence,
But he's been defeated. But we've seen the way that duelists have been defeated, and they're still around.
They're still around, but they don't have memories, right?
Yeah.
And so
that's just Akio having done his thing.
Exactly. He did the call. He told him basically what the situation was. And I'm guessing when they see him next, he won't remember any of this.
Yeah.
He won't remember any of this.
Except I think it's going to be worse.
Yeah.
Because he said, you graduate from the school. That gives me
almost
like the,
so it's
you will be banished.
Right.
This realm is my realm. You are no longer going to be here again.
Sure. No, yeah, I like it. That's a good point. I was going to say we could potentially still have him as an ongoing cast member, which could be a really fun way to continue to explore things. But no, he's gone. And given that this is end of Act 2, essentially, right? And given that the show is around 3 core, give or take, I think I remember it being like an irregular number of
I
episodes.
believe it's 3 core, yeah.
Yeah, but generally 3 core. This makes me very, not confused, not curious, kind of a mix of the two, but not quite, of what the next chapter is going to be, because we had a lot of stuff happen in this arc, for sure, right? Like, you know, this chunk. And yet, we didn't really get much answers. It was more, and a lot of the episodes, because they were repeat episodes, it was more developing characters and, like, you know, building on the themes and things like that, but not so much any of the concrete details. And so I don't know how much the plot elements will continue to, like, fan out before coming back in, or if they're going to stay kind of, like, mysterious and yet, the things that have been touched on, we just won't touch on them for a while.
Right.
Until it comes back into a conclusion. And yet there's all of these things that I feel like need to happen in the fanning out before then, mainly with Anthi, right? Because that just seems like a whole complicated thing.
Well, I think the masks will drop sometime before we get to the second to last and final episodes,
right, exactly.
Obviously. So it's
and hey,
what time will there be conflict where the student council all assembles together underneath the Utena banner,
right,
and charges forth and takes the fight to, you know, Akio.
And you know, of course, I think I speak for both of us. We always want more Anthi, right?
Yes.
Like she is a fascinating character.
She might be the best character in the story.
I think she easily, in my personal opinion,
she's being set up to be. It's just
takes the cake.
But because the story hasn't ended.
Right. Yeah.
There's some ways that they could fuck it up.
Yeah. The way that it ends, will definitely affect things a bunch. But if this whole next chunk of the story was just like all Anthi focused
and Utena together,
and
kind of stuff,
Utena together, and then maybe
not together,
a little
but
bit
like
of sure, but then like maybe just the tiny little concluding bits for the other characters that have been set up, but like almost entirely Anthi and Utena, I would 100% be down for that.
Oh yeah, I would absolutely be down for that. I think that there's like a couple things that there's a couple things that in this story feel like they kind of have to happen with the way they've kind of set up the. Because again, I feel like this show so heavily relies on archetypes to play with.
100%.
And then basically goes, okay, you know what these are, so we don't have to go in depth into them. We're going to lightly tease them so you know, hey, we're playing with these toys here.
And then we're going
to go crazy shit over here.
Right, yeah, we're going to twist them up and throw some...
Yeah, and Anthi and Utena are in some ways two sides of the same coin. They represent femininity and womanhood.
Sure. Okay.
And the idea that Utena is the idea that, you know, I can be brash, I can be free, I can be wild, I can do, you know, whatever I want. There's freedom in that.
Yeah.
And thus, in some ways, everyone's like, what are you even a like you're wearing like a men's uniform and stuff like that.
Well, and just what are you? Who are you in general?
Right.
Because Utena's
what even is this?
Utena, femininity aside, Utena is one hell of a person, right? Very, very extreme in her own ways. And Anthi very much is as well.
Right. But Anthi's thing is that it is, rather than being expressed, it is being suppressed.
Yes.
So her side is all there. It's all completely there, but it's dormant. It is there's almost a domicile like kind of aspect to her being like yes, Utena, and that side of it creates this stark, just painful contrast when we see the emotion come from Anthi, because we're like,
you're right, which is why the bit in the
there,
ED is so fucking wonderful that we get to see it,
right? Because we know then the other dimensions are there,
right? Exactly, because the one of our biggest problems with the show at the beginning of it is there's a lot of uncomfortable stuff, and Anthi's just accepting it, right? Like and some of the other characters too, but Anthi's just accepting it. Come on,
it drives this wedge into your mind of, you have to then characterize Anthi based on these things there.
Right.
And then, thus there's a very clear, specific one that we're feeling like is more and more what they're leaning to of the, no, Anthi absolutely does hate it and despise it, or it's there. But it's for whatever reason, she has so much self-control or so much of a strong perception in her mind of the way things are, or what's going on.
She has much bigger fish that she's frying, so
All this stuff
Sayonji and
doesn't even
Toga
matter
and
to
Nanami
her.
and all that stuff. It's nothing.
Even though it probably pisses her off, that she
Even
has
though it
to
probably
deal with
pisses
it.
her off, but it's I can deal with Akio, so they're no problem.
Right,
And
right.
and yet we have the meta breaking the fourth wall, kind of winking at the
Mm-hmm.
audience in the ED, where it's the that's not all there is.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. And so that way we can then see all the little clues and cues.
Right.
Yeah.
So the way in which you can infer from that is that it has to go back around to Utena. Is that Utena has another side of her that we
right.
haven't been made aware of. But because she's based around the idea of expression, that means that it's then she shouldn't know about this other side of her. It literally has to be something that she can't express.
Well, okay.
Cook with me on this.
All right.
If Anthony's is suppressed, then she can be fully aware of it because it's just not going to come out. It's hidden. She's intentionally hiding it.
And
Whereas with Utena, if she had another side of herself, she couldn't hide it. She's literally too expressive and stuff to be able to keep that in there. So it's something that is tied to the idea that she's had her memories altered. She's had stuff about her that's been manipulated in this way to where she doesn't even know who she is. And there we go. We've come all the way back full circle to this being an identity story about her realizing who she is.
in order for me to track with your cooking, so you said that Anthi is suppressed.
It's suppressed, yeah.
Suppressed versus repressed, different things. So suppressed, my understanding of it as far as definitions is that that's an outside force, right? You know, it's an outside thing suppressing, something else, right?
I believe so.
The soldiers of the dictator suppressing the population, right?
Just because I'm not like, I don't want to be,
Whereas repress is when something that you do to yourself, right?
To suppress a thing means to end or inhibit or restrain forcibly from being revealed or developed. On the other hand, to repress something means to hold back something or keep something under control forcibly.
Right.
Okay, so then I would say they're too close in this regard to actually say that it's. I could say it's both in a lot of ways. Because,
but the key difference there is external versus something that you do yourself.
Not necessarily, no. The thing means to end or inhibit or restrain forcibly from being revealed or developed, but this means to hold back something or keep something under control.
So repression is a form of suppression, but not all suppression is repression.
Right. Yeah.
So inside the Venn diagram. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But with regards to that, do you see Anthi's situation as being something where would you see it as being repression versus just general suppression?
I think she's 100% aware of what she's holding back.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So we got repression there. Awesome. And then with Utena's, you don't think that she's aware of the thing because she wouldn't be able to hold it back.
No.
The thought that I had was that with how it was brought up specifically in this episode of the whole bit where she literally got into a coffin as a kid because she's like, I guess I should just die, right?
I guess I should just die now.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
what everyone does eventually. So yeah.
Right. Why bother beating around the bush?
A strong person wouldn't be able to go on to become a great duelist if they had those memories eating at them constantly, if they had that worldview.
Except that she did remember that. She just didn't remember who the person was that woke her up, that got her out of the coffin.
Yeah, yes, obviously. But the thing is that the person that woke her up and got her out of the coffin isn't how she necessarily remembers her prince. Like her that remember Toga was the one that brought up that flashback. He used we've never seen Utena in first person, I believe, look back at those memories specifically and comment on them. It's always been an indirect method.
Right.
Showing in my mind that it's some kind of control that's keeping her from accessing those memories.
Right. I think I remembered that incorrectly. Haha. In that Toga was using that to try and make her think that he was her prince.
Exactly.
Not because he wasn't actually the person who got her out of the coffin.
Exactly.
He was.
But he might have been, yeah.
Right. But he tried to use that as a way to manipulate her into thinking that he was the prince who gave her the ring.
Right.
Right. Which probably isn't what happened.
No. But again, since we kind of now can see Akio's hand in this, it makes sense that Akio would suggest to Toga to do something like that.
Sure. But given the fact that Toga's thing was fairly separate from Akio as far as his interactions, he would get if Akio is end of the world. Right.
No, I think...
But that's giving instructions and stuff. It's not giving, like, power to manipulate memories.
No, totally. Right? But I think it's basically almost like certain that Akio is the end of the world. Like,
No, yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
But given that, I would say that the memory of that event, even if it's hazy and Utena doesn't no, that memory of Utena's is not hazy.
No.
Because it was actually Toga, right? I think she does remember that. That is something that she is still aware of. I think that's one of the reasons that fuels her current present and state, because that's why she goes at things so directly, because that's a part of who she is. If she is still going to live, right, then she might as well, be herself, live
you're saying she has to know what
and
she was
bluntly.
saved from in order to actually be seeing it as a saving, that the prince saved her from living life that way. Like, basically that if
right.
she didn't know what she was like before that, then she wouldn't see it as that great
Right.
of a big help.
Yeah, she wouldn't hold on to the memory as
that's a
strongly.
perspective. Yeah, I still think that the point that I think is really big here is that it's not just that she's holding on to this very vague, and I mean very vague, loose memory here. We've never seen her actually address these memories at all. It's entirely been through indirect stuff here, that she does not either actively think about it much, or it is something that is suppressed, repressed, whatever.
Right.
It's a thing that is,
I'm not going to deal with that, right? Like,
or a Akio, just literally because he was involved in some way with the memory side of things, probably has muddied the water to the point where she doesn't even necessarily have memory of who she was. Maybe I'm thinking about this backwards, because in my mind, Utena's character growth and progression is based around identity. She needs to know who she is by the end of this.
Yep.
But the only reason she would need to know who she is if she doesn't know who she is at this point. And she clearly, by the way that she kind of gets so easily manipulated, I guess, is a pretty just simple way to put it. I don't think she has really strong specific recollection of that whole event, or even who she was before.
I mean, there's definitely parts where we know she didn't have good recollection, like with the prince and things like that. As far as, like, there's not knowing who you are, and you're aware that you don't know who you are, and then that gets, scary or concerning or whatever.
Yeah.
And then there's having an incomplete knowledge of who you are, right? Where you're like, okay, I know that this is part of who I am.
Which is basically everyone's experience, though.
Right. Well, yeah, it's because otherwise you're basically just going into puberty territory, right? With the, oh my God, I don't know who I am, because, you're changing and all that.
Well, right, but also it's asymptotic. You can never truly exactly
totally.
know 100% who you are. So
Absolutely.
everyone has the
right,
between
exactly.
0 and 100%.
In Utena's case, she does know a fair bit about who she is, I would say. But there are some things that she definitely doesn't know about herself. And so Soji, with the perspective of being around for a very long time,
Being like, in some ways, another Utena.
right, being very similar to her, he's then able to say, here are things that you haven't realized about yourself because you're one, young, but two, you're not exactly the brightest and most self-aware person in this show.
No.
Right? So, of course, and then that makes her freak out and all that. But yeah,
Okay, so my whole point that I was trying to bring up was that the idea is that if Utena and Anthi are both headed in a direction of self-actualization, they're getting to that point where Anthi is able to be free,
right.
regardless of what that means, because we don't know her motivations entirely. Utena is then able to be free of the past by the idea of the memory that's basically shaped who she is to the point where she feels like a pawn in like a really, really sick fuck's game at this point. So hold on there. Then the idea would be that in order for her to be free, she needs to literally like revolutionize her world. She needs to come all the way back through every single element of her past, redefine it, set a new course, and become basically who she is. And that's why I look at a lot of the trappings of Utena as being tied to the fictitious memory. So she has very little understanding of who she is.
Well, and this
really.
is where, and I think this is where we differ personally.
Okay.
Hence the whole debate with this Toga rematch, right?
Uh-huh.
Of whether she had figured herself out, even
Right.
if she, you know, is still, of course, going to learn more things and get more
Yep.
experience as time goes on, right?
Yep.
Versus it being flawed and incomplete.
Right.
Is the freeing herself from her past something where you must entirely divorce yourself from your past, or is it breaking the shackles to your past so that then you can integrate it, right? In the instance of what Utena had at the beginning of the show, there was something that was a very bad memory, right? A bad experience, some part of the past that was
painful.
would have
Yeah.
she didn't have a way to deal with it.
Yep.
She figured out a way to deal with it so that she's not tied to the past, but because she used it for fuel, right, to become a positive thing, what happens if you lose that fuel, right? It becomes a different kind of dependency, and hence the need to have the situation with Toga happen, right? There is the possibility that she still has that.
Well, we know she still has that. We know that she still has that.
I don't think so, though.
Yeah, that's basically what Soji kind of calls out on, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that he's like, you have the power to make your memories eternal. You're going to basically burn the fuel on this thing until it gives you the ability to transcend whatever the nonsense is with the duels, attain the power of Dios, get to the thing there, and that's the kind of stuff that she's being manipulated to set up and do for Akio and
I could
Yanthi.
I could absolutely see it being something where then it's if the memory itself is faulty, being tampered with, whatever,
which we know it
well
most
hang
likely
on.
has to be. Okay.
Hang on.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course it is. But there's a Soji's big problem, which is also why I would say we have to take everything he said to Utena with a grain of salt, which is what you want in an antagonist when they say you're like me, is because the antagonist is the one who didn't figure things out. They made the mistake. They weren't able to complete the mission, and that's why, if there's similarities, the protagonist is the protagonist, because they're hopefully the one who's going to figure it out, right?
Well,
and that's why it's their story.
Well, right, but also, Utena's path as she is right now is not going to solve all the problems. She doesn't have what she needs.
Okay.
Still.
That's where I would say
That's where we
differ.
disagree?
That's where we
Okay.
disagree.
Okay.
But
Gotcha.
there's a big difference between holding on to the past so much that it overwrites your present versus using your past as fuel towards your future.
Absolutely.
Now, that's still a vulnerability for Utena's, because apparently there are people that can fuck with memories, and so then they can control your future if they can manipulate your past, right? But I would say that doesn't have to be something where then Utena has to free herself from her past. It's something where she has to break the hold that Akio would have on her past, other people's past, etc.
That's just basically saying you break free of your past by acting in the present. That's,
No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
Because yes, that's true, but it's the difference of it being something where
You mean she's not going to forget her past. She's going to be she's going to use it in the same way that, she's used all of her experiences in the show thus far.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, that's
even if the memory is completely fake, that doesn't mean it's not Utena's to use.
Right, but you're using too much black and white terminology here. The point I'm making is that obviously the memories that she has shaped who she's going to be, and she's not going to suddenly remove all memories and become an entirely different person. I'm not making that distinction here. My distinction is that Utena is still not in a good enough, healthy, in my opinion, place with regards to her identity that she can take this as she is all the way to the end, short of some, I would say, transformation of who she is with regards to her identity. That does not mean that she completely throws away everything that she's learned thus far. It just means that she approaches it from a different perspective. If she looks at everything that she has here and goes, oh, I still judge a lot of it to have value because I experienced it, I learned from it.
Yeah.
It's not a thing of where I then go, okay, I abandon all of that and go in a different direction. It's basically saying, okay, now all of this can be recontextualized as this was important for me to then come to the realization that I needed to change. What's the way I'm going to change? I then do that. I then still carry all these things with me.
I guess I just wouldn't see Akio's influence being removed as being Utena changing. Like-
okay, but
like,
but
you know-
but again, hold on here.
Mm-hmm.
If Utena draws her strength
Mm-hmm.
from a male figure in her past, this
Mm-hmm.
is I think the really important thing that this is a show that
Yeah.
very much seems to be pointing at. That is not Utena's strength.
No, it's because okay.
You see what I'm
Right.
saying? Is
No,
that
because that's not inherently her strength.
she needs
Her-
to become the prince that saves herself.
and that's what she okay, I wouldn't say that.
Or
I would
she
say
becomes the prince that can save
save other people like Anthi.
Like Anthi,
and,
yeah.
And the thing is that she started out on that journey right after the prince found her, right? She's like, okay, I'm going to become a prince, right?
She became very...
But she
yeah.
was very naive, so she doesn't exactly know what that entails, the
She doesn't know how to
difficulties that come
apply
with
it
that.
all
She doesn't
the
know how to
time.
apply it.
Yeah.
But that's still the goal that she's fixated
No,
on.
I'm with you.
know.
I'm with you. Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think that she's headed in a direction where she's going to be able to do that without dramatically changing a lot of her perspective on that. And that's
Interesting.
because, in my opinion, the story has actually put Utena on the back burner. They specifically
totally has, yeah.
set up that stuff that I think you're talking about, and then they
Yep.
they
We're gonna
put her
talk
in
about other
stasis.
shit now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's because I think that the progress actually stalled out because she eventually won the fight. The fact that the progress
Oh, yeah,
I think
that's-
started was
right.
because she lost.
So this really does tie back to the toga debate.
It really does.
Yeah. So the reason why I think it stalled out, yes, because she won, but that's not because it's a problem. The fact that she won there, I think, and the fact that they bring this up again here, yes, there could be aspects of it where it's still a hard thing because it's a memory that was of a hard time, right? But it's because she is actually equipped to be able to be that support for Anthi. Anthi is able to actually vulnerably, well, not fully vulnerably, but to an extent vulnerably lean on her. She
Right, but there's a reason why she hasn't fully yet, and I think that's because Utena couldn't do it.
I think
now.
so. I don't think it's that. I think it's because Anthi doesn't necessarily think she can. / Anthi is not necessarily ready for it. But it does not necessarily have to do with whether or not Utena can, right? Because
Okay, I would say that if we had to go into like specifics here, Anthi and Akio at this point have the best perspective of anyone in this story. There is no one who has more perspective, I would say, than those two. And
Yeah.
it really just gets into which one has
more perspective over the other.
well, right, because one of them is trapped in an illusion of some kind.
I would, yeah, and you could say both
At
of them.
least,
are.
yes, exactly. But it's more the question of
Multiple ways, too.
Right. When it comes right down to it, which of them, even though Akio is probably more powerful in terms of his influence inside of things, he could be more trapped in an illusion theoretically than Anthi could.
Yeah.
But all that being said, given that that's the case, obviously there's no definitive she cannot do it. But I believe Anthi has so much perspective that from Anthi's perspective, Utena cannot do it. It's the no. It's a
Okay.
not a I don't believe she can versus whether she can. I think Anthi has so much perspective that she's like, no, there will potentially be a point in the future, but it is not now.
It is not this day.
It is not this day. It is not like we are not there yet.
Well, and I would say, definitively, regardless of what reason for it is,
Right.
Anthi
Whatever
absolutely
reason it
is
is.
of the opinion that I can't fully lean on Utena now. I'm not going to tell her where I am when I leave and things like that.
Yep.
But when I come back, when I sleep, when I need that respite, I will absolutely sit with her and hold her hand.
Right, and I think that's because in some ways she knows what Akio is planning a little bit, and at the very least, wants to be there, not just for her own benefit, but in some ways for the, I don't want Akio to get to you the same way he got to me, but also
Sure.
I want to.
Right.
I
Me
want
supreme
to,
being, I protect you. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
If you get that reference, you're amazing.
Fifth Element, watch it.
Yeah. Watch The Fifth Element. It's amazing. But yeah, she's also trying to protect Utena a little bit. Now,
Right.
I do think that there's some complicated emotions there,
Absolutely.
but I think
Who knows to the degree they'll get into it. you know?
right, but I think a lot of that is more tied to the lack of perspective and the fact that Utena is not who she needs to be yet. I think a lot of that
Maybe.
is maybe the frustrations of maybe how little she can help Utena, or maybe the little ways in which Utena is not really even necessarily seeing Anthe's help or something.
So I could
Like big baka energy,
yeah, absolutely,
you know, kind of thing.
yeah. But at the same
Not to be
time,
cringe, but yeah.
at the same time, flip side of this.
Okay.
All right, and this is probably the last thing I have to say for this episode, right?
Yeah.
In an ideal balanced relationship, you would have something where they would both be helping each other out. So while Anthe probably, I would say there's a decent chance that she has even more perspective than Akio and would be the person with the most perspective in the show, I could see it being something where she actually needs less perspective in a way. She needs to be able to she could use to have a little bit of Utena rub off on her.
Well, yeah,
where
she
it's
needs freedom. Yeah.
Well, that's a. I mean, yeah, you could say that's a mental freedom thing, but it's more a circumstances freedom, right? Because Akio is a very real present problem.
Right.
But she needs a bit of that Herbo energy, right? Where it's the, I'll keep things simple. Don't think about it too much. I'll frack it up,
Right.
That's part of her arc in the situation, and that's why Utena is important.
Sure. I would just say that's freedom. Being no offense in a silly way, but like being stupid is kind of freeing,
Oh, yeah.
Where you don't have to think about a lot of nonsense and stuff that bogs you down.
Right. It's the reminiscing for the days of your childhood when everything was so much simpler. Yeah.
Right. The idea that perspective and perspective beyond yourself at a certain point can end up being kind of a curse. In the same way that Utena, when she was a child, apparently was thinking about the ways in which everybody ends up dead. That's not really helpful perspective. Obviously, it's true.
Yeah.
Everybody knows this, but that's a part of growing up, is you realize that there's a lot of things that you're aware of, but you can't actually revolutionize the world. So, from the standpoint of what Utena is, she's going to give or be given the power to revolutionize the world. And then probably her first act, in my opinion, what she'll probably do with the ability to revolutionize the world, is then give it to Anthe and be like, all right, Anthe, go revolutionize the world. Let's do it. And them being teamed up together has been, obviously written in the stars. It's going to happen.
And if the only confession of love that we get is them holding hands before walking into a pillar of light as they
or riding on
the
horses
world,
with lances as they go and charge the castle together.
Oh, I was gonna say just spear Akio, but show probably won't go that far. Yeah, but
I don't need any more phallic imagery in my Revolutionary Girl Utena.
Akio. This time it's bigger and it's sharp.
And it's coming from both ends. So prepare to get fucked. So y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get an early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there, and all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us in the community there about this show, about anime in general. And also be sure to check out my Persona 5 Royal Let's Play on Twitch. And if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.